For Stadio, a qualification isn't just a qualification. It's more students inspired to reimagine their possibilities. With 5 faculties, 10 campuses and over 50 accredited qualifications, undergraduate and postgraduate studies, contact, distance and blended learning, we're transforming higher education into something that's truly multi-faculty, multi-campus and multi-mode. Stadio, a new vision in higher education.
Bart, welcome. Bart is sitting on that side to hide his car. He didn't fall off his bike, but your son hit you, no?
His skull, I don't know if it was in retribution for something, but it was a squash accident.
Luckily he didn't squash you.
Luckily not. He's taller and heavier than me now.
And prettier.
Thanks, Carl.
Right, but the first thing I think that upsets me the most of the whole international news is that Australia Rugby Union has now offered the British and Irish Lions and South Africa 10 million, I think, pounds or euro each to play the series down under. Your thoughts?
Now, Carl, I think I've said it previously. I'm not so negative about it. I know it's a business decision, and I always knew that Saru and Rassie would take it for 2 reasons. The financial gain out of it for Saru. Unfortunately, there's a lot of businesses in South Africa that would lose out. And secondly, to still get the series done for this year. And maybe that is selfish from Saru, and let's call it selfish from Rassie's point of view, to not wait or change the tours around or whatever the case might be. But I think in the end, the biggest losers are the South African public, obviously. We, the supporters that would have loved, we all have our tickets ready to go and watch those matches. And now that cannot happen. And like I say, there's a lot of money that will not end up in South African pockets. So that's a big negative. But for rugby's sake, for the Springboks' sake, I think the time is right that it takes place. And because of the fact that you might have, for this year in any case, a lot more spectators. So, yeah, I'm not that negative about it.
Yeah, but I can't see, and again I state that South Africa is supposedly, we're one of the powers on the rugby field, but it seems like off the rugby field, in the boardrooms and everything, we're not a power in world rugby, and it's time that the guys put it right. I mean, there's no ways that we need to bow our heads. 200 million sounds like a lot of money. I don't think it's a lot. So they can come and play here. I'm sure with the television rights and all that kind of stuff, we can make up the money. But yeah, luckily, I don't have a say into that. But the second thing is, I watched 3 games of the Pro 14 and Top 14, but they don't impress me. They're all going about the rugby that they're playing and everything. The top 14, I watched the game between Stade de France and I don't know what the other team was. I was a bit bored and I fell asleep. That's not rugby that they're playing. It is scrap. It is gemors. I don't know.
Carl, it's typical Northern Hemisphere rugby. Obviously, if you look at the conditions, and I'm not trying to soften the blow for them, I don't think the quality is good either. We've got a lot of South African players there that deserves to stand out, that will definitely be good in South Africa as well. But there's quite a few players there that would battle to get into South African teams. That's actually standouts there. So that in itself says a lot to me. And like you say, the quality of play is really not that good. So it would be interesting to see once we found our feet and our teams go and play there. It's not going to be that easy to adapt to the conditions, softer underfoot conditions, wet, cold, etc. But my feeling just is that it might not be that bad. I think it just will fit our power play with our forwards and tight forwards up front even better, especially for some of the teams.
But it was played on an artificial pitch. So there's no problem with the weather. It was snowing outside apparently, not inside the stadium. But it was played on an artificial pitch. It was supposed to be fast, open rugby that's being played. Personally, I would fire both coaches because there's no structure in the game. I was bored. I read this weekend in the newspaper, Louis de Villiers, that said it's worse because there's no titties on the game, so he prefers watching other thing with the Dragons than rugby. I'm at the same. If I'm in the UK or in Europe and have to watch that type of rugby weekend after weekend, I'll also watch. Yeah.
Now, Carl, look, one thing one's got to accept is that most of the internationals are out at the moment, so you are not watching the best players there. But then again, it shows the big gap with the players not being involved in the provincial games because of the Six Nations. So that in itself will make a difference. But even if you look at the kind of rugby that we're seeing in the Six Nations, has also really been very poor rugby, with the exception here and there of Scotland, maybe the most exciting of all the teams. But yeah, the quality it is really not that good. And it maybe gives a bit of perspective in terms of the Currie Cup series that we just witnessed in South Africa, that everyone had an issue with the quality of play. So maybe that just gives us a bit of perspective that we have to consider that if you look at the rugby now in the Northern Hemisphere, it's really not good rugby.
And they're not good news for the Bulls. Marcel Coetzee injured again. They say between 4 weeks and 4 months, so must be worrying for Jake White and them. He's injury prone. It's going to happen here also.
Carl, that's well, it's actually not a calculated risk. It is a risk that you take, and probably with more hope than anything else. And that's your problem that you have with older players. I mean, they scarcely had Hugh Oplon, and I don't care. It might have been a weird injury or accidental thing or whatever. They lost Hugh very early, and those are big name players that's come back, and then you've got to understand you're going to have to carry several of those players if that's the case. But like you say, unfortunately, Coetzee has shown that he is a bit injury prone in the way that he's playing as well. So there's very few players that can play like that, and Dwayne Vermeulen is one that comes to mind. That brutal physical game and stay on the field, very few, and he's the exception.
And then the last thing that, yeah, it's the amount of red cards that was dished out in the UK. Necessary? Do we need a change on the red card system?
The one thing that I definitely see, especially in Australia at the moment, that is very clear is that they've really made a concerted effort to get the officials to officiate the game. That has been our main gripe in recent months, is why change rules because we don't apply rules properly. What I've seen in some of the games in Australia is that they have really patrolled the offside lines viciously. So now you'll always have someone moaning about that, but I don't have a problem with that. You're going to do that for 2 or 3 rounds in a competition, then the players will understand. That's what we said about the lineouts. To prevent the shambles that we have in lineouts of players playing each other in the air, etc., make sure that you police the spacing properly. So rather apply the current rules than change rules because it's not applied properly. And the same goes with cards. So there's been a lot of criticism out of Europe about the cards that's been dished out there in recent months. And again, we have the situation that some of them totally valid, strike to the head with the shoulder, etc., etc. But then in some cases it just seems that some players are handled in a different way. Then they get away with murder, and they don't even get a card in a match, which is clearly afterwards sort of seen as a red cardable offence. So players and coaches only want consistency. And if there's consistency in transgressing a rule, whether you were unlucky about the way that you entered into a ruck or a tackle, toughies, then just apply the rule. And therefore, if it means that players have got to feel it in different ways. You've made a suggestion, for example, that especially where players are becoming serial offenders or really transgressing to protect his team from a score or something like that, then he must feel it in his pocket. He must not only be taken out of the game for a couple of weeks, he mustn't earn money for that period. Then he won't go that route. So that's the way we need to go. Apply the rules that is already written. Don't change the rules because we're applying it poorly.
Yeah, I can't understand. We're looking at to adapt the dishing out of cards and everything to make the content of the competition more fairly and that kind of stuff. But then on the other hand, you allow a guy to take a oak off the field and injury for the rest of a season. My personal opinion is take his pay away. Suspend him for 4 weeks minimum on a red card, and he's not allowed to get salary for that 4 weeks. Then only the player will stop doing stupid things on the field. By sending him off and suspending him for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, it doesn't take any money from him, so he just doesn't care. I think some players might even use it to get a free holiday or something. But I don't think so. The rugby is at a stage where we're looking at changing rugby in order to make it more spectator friendly and that kind of stuff. I think it's unnecessary.
Yeah, it's overkill probably, Cole. I like the idea that the entertainment should remain and you want people to come and watch the game. We've said it before, but there's ways and means of doing that without changing the nature of the game. Because at the moment, we are busy changing the nature of the game. You're taking the physical battles out, and if we listen to what the ideas are at the moment on the table, is to take out risk of injury and lessen the physical nature of the game. That's not the reason why we're getting injuries. The reason is reckless play that should be policed better by the officials. and then severe penalties afterwards for players, especially if it's actions that could have been prevented. And that's as easy as that. If we need to get to a point where we need to get a player for 6 months out of the game, then we need to go there. It'll set an example, and we'll just get the players back to where they need to be.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with you. If you want to be entertained, and that's free advertising now, go to Teazers, go to, I don't know what all those clubs are. Go and watch primary school rugby where the mummies are still young and fit and everything. Rugby has shown if there's a proper contest, that people will flock to the stadiums. Rugby is all about winning. I think rugby, yeah, it's, I don't know, entertainment, yeah, my opinion. If you want to be entertained, go to Teazers if your wife will allow you.
I have to say, Carl, in the end, you know, getting the people, which is your paying public, does matter. And we have seen people's, you know, we tend to forget easily. Even before the Bulls took a little bit of a nosedive in terms of results, there was a phase where they were still winning, but their support was dwindling in the last period of them, even while they were winning games, because they were just absolutely without any real entertainment value, if I can put it in that way. So I know that our public's very finicky, and to me there is some value in entertainment. I agree with you. The physical component and the tough battle up front is part of the entertainment. That's 100%. But it does count for something if you have teams trying to play exciting rugby and scoring tries. Not maybe for us always, but if you want to get the people back, they want to come and watch winning rugby, but they also love seeing some exciting games, which would include running rugby.
All right, then it's decided between me and Bart. He will go to the Varsity Cup games. I will go to the school games, because if I must sit at Tix again and all the banging and everything, and that lady running with a microphone and say, Tix. Yeah, but that's yours now. It's entertainment. I'll even supply you with beer.
Well, I had an interesting chat this morning with one of our frontline university sports directors, and they I think none of the universities are at a place where they're looking past the fact that the so-called entertainment value that we created in Varsity Cup is a little bit of an artificial nature. Not little bit, a lot. And what is interesting, what he actually mentioned to me was that the viewing public that was sort of calculated out of the current Varsity Cup competitions are not the young people watching the games. It's more us. That's literally what, that's the amount of people. So the more popular games that's being watched by young people is the football, is the soccer. So that in itself is a huge finger pointing that we need to look at. And it's not the students that created Varsity Cup. It's us that created Varsity Cup.
Not me.
And I'm talking about the business model that is working for a certain group of people, but it's not really working. And that I can vouch for. At the time that I was involved in Varsity Cup, there was a clear negative feeling starting to grow from out of your natural students in the environment, and also your rugby players who felt that Varsity Cup rugby was not the students' rugby anymore. So there I agree with you. You can imitate and entertain next to the field as much as you want. People want to see rugby on the field for students, and we had a couple of interesting chats over the last couple of weeks on social media about even some of our frontline publications keeping on using so-called ex-Springbok or Springboks that are ex-Varsity Cup players that never saw the inside of a classroom. So I'm sorry, I won't go there. If you want to tell me about students that is the heart of Varsity Cup rugby, then you bring me a student that has studied and completed his degree. So give me a name list of players that has won Varsity Cups, that has completed the degree. Then we worry about the flashy players on the side that's only been there for 6 months or for a year, and now you want to use him as the poster boy for Varsity Cup rugby. I cannot agree.
Yeah, a bit off the topic, but we were with international news and
Entertainment.
yeah, the entertainment.
False entertainment.
Yeah. Yeah, let's just leave it there. Yeah, so that was the international side of the weekend or the week. We leave the intervarsity, but we'll be forced to go to the intervarsity, or we'll pay somebody else to go and watch Varsity Cup.
It's not intervarsity anymore.
Yeah, Varsity
intervarsity was still something special, but now it's Varsity Cup, and that's the
there the entertainment was after hours at Potsdam and those places.
True.
That's when I played rugby. But thanks a lot. Enjoy.